Hello, everybody. My name is James, joined as ever by my good friend Steve, and this is our immediate post Oscars 2024 reaction. So, Steve, the Oscars have just finished just a few moments ago. Initial thoughts?
Uh, James, my initial thought is before you even comment on the winners and losers tonight, is what a tight, well structured, produced show this was. I think from beginning to end, I thought there's been a lot of criticism of things being bloated, of time lengths, going over and whatever was going on behind the scenes this year, they seemed to get all the awards in. They seem to get the past award winners for the higher level or the bigger awards to come out and give little mini speeches. What I thought was going to balloon the whole evening. And
Mm.
somehow this just landed tight on 3.5 hours. And besides that, it was just an enjoyable, fun show to watch.
It was slick. Yeah, I think it came in under time. It had all the musical numbers. It had the in memorial section. It had a really nice reel for stunt guys. And it was funny, and it was just
Yes.
it was just good fun. And there were a couple of bits that worked really, really well. There was nothing that really sort of seemed to land on dead ears. And so yeah, I think just as a variety show, as a spectacle, as a slice of entertainment in and of itself, it worked really, really well, and it didn't outstay its welcome, and that's always a relief.
Yeah, and I think we were getting the feed from the UK, and they were mentioning something during the commercial breaks, which I wanted to highlight.
Mm,
And I was thinking about this myself, is in the past, we've always kind of, let's just get to the best actor and actress and director, and who cares about sound and costume design. And there seems to be a real groundswell of appreciation, perhaps coming out of the strike, of everything it takes to make a movie. And there's a real appreciation for the editing and the makeup and design and sound and so it's not like, oh, can we just get through these categories? I want to know about what the winners have done before. I want to know a little more about the creative process that they went into in the short time that they're up there. And so I think it just all around makes the awards ceremony a much more interesting show to watch.
yeah, I agree. There have been sort of times in previous Oscar ceremonies where there has been sort of pressure to skip the boring stuff, you know,
Yes. Yeah.
and yeah, and I think increasingly, and I think it's probably just all part of the bigger sort of groundswell of sort of appreciation and diversification and all of that kind of stuff. I think a few people said it towards the end, but it was like, this isn't about me. This award isn't for
Mm.
me. It's for everybody else. And it takes
Emma,
a
Emma
village.
Stone
And
just now really highlighted that
see,
just in
I
her
was trying
awards.
not to sort of spoil, even though obviously
We've all seen it.
everybody
Come
watching this video
on.
knows the results. No one's watching this for the news, for sure. But yeah, no, I agree, and I
Yeah.
liked it. That was a nice touch at the beginning where Kimmel brought
Yeah.
out like all the backstage crew from the
Yes.
production of the show, just to sort of acknowledge, that no one crossed the picket line during the strikes and all that kind of stuff. And it was,
Hmm.
yeah, it was great. It was great.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what I liked, I mean, no surprise,
I got
Oppenheimer.
17 out of 23. Okay. Go ahead.
Nice. So what I liked is that while no surprise and as predicted, Oppenheimer did come out as the big winner. I felt that in a lot of the other categories there was some genuine sort of not sort of upsets so much as just sort of interesting results and some slightly unexpected outcomes. I mean, for we are based in Hong Kong, so I just wanted to like do a little big up to the Asian representation first and
Yes.
foremost. Two wins for Japan.
Yes.
Godzilla minus one won the best visual effects, which I think we did predict and we're
You
rooting
did.
for on the
Yeah.
way in. But then the Boy and the Heron won best animated feature over Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse must have really upset you.
Yeah, and it upset my son. I was watching with my son. My son loves The Boy and the Heron. He gives me all kinds of grief for my pretty much poo-pooing The Boy and the Heron. And so, although I wasn't a big fan of Across the Spider-Verse, I still thought that was going to beat The Boy and the Heron, and I was surprised.
Yeah, I mean, likewise, I like seeing The Boy and the Heron win. As I've said before, it's not my favorite Miyazaki movie, but I think that Miyazaki deserves to be appreciated and held to as high regard as Pixar, for example. Whenever
Hmm.
there's a Pixar movie in contention, it seems to just win.
Yeah.
Without
Yeah.
people really giving it a second thought. I was surprised that people were jumping on the second Spider-Man Spider-Verse movie as readily as they did the first one. We've discussed previously that we didn't like it as much as we liked the first one. But it did seem to be just sort of riding on the coattails of the first one. So it was great. So it was a nice little
Yeah.
unexpected twist on the night. So unexpected that Miyazaki and co weren't there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
he's an old man. He's like come out of
Yeah.
retirement more than once to
Yeah.
make this. But there was no representative
And
there.
and he's no secret that Miyazaki doesn't really hold the Academy in America and Hollywood in the highest regards. So,
Well, yeah, there
um,
were these great stories about when I think it was Miramax, when Weinstein was running Miramax, and Miramax acquired the distribution rights to all of his to all the Studio Ghibli movies, and they had a reputation. Weinstein had a reputation at the time for cutting foreign films and
right.
re-editing foreign films that they were going to then release. And apparently Miyazaki, so the story goes, sent him a samurai sword, very nice, beautiful, ornate samurai sword in the mail with a note that simply said, "No cuts." I was like, nice. Okay, that's very cool.
One of the big surprises for me, James, was adapted screenplay. I think you and I had both picked Oppenheimer adapting
Mm.
American Prometheus. We thought was going to be a shoe-in win. I was pleasantly surprised, though, to see American Fiction get it. I love that film. I would have been, of course, happy for Oppenheimer to have won it, but that was probably the biggest early surprise for me of the evening.
Okay, I mean, this was like the one category where I was like stubbornly standing my ground despite what all the information put in front of me was telling me.
Yeah, yeah.
Because certainly within the last sort of week or so, American Fiction had pulled ahead as the
Oh,
favorite
okay.
for this category. But I was just like, no, I
Yeah,
really like Oppenheimer. I really like the adaptation of Oppenheimer. I'm
yeah,
reading the book at the moment and getting a far better understanding of how much information was put in front of Nolan, in order
yeah.
to write the screenplay. I know that best adapted screenplay isn't best adaptation; it's merely best screenplay based on previously written
Right.
material. But and yet, so I saw this one coming, but this was the one where I really was like, no, I'm standing my ground.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
I'm going to not move. What I was more and obviously I think we both picked Anatomy of a Fall, and that was great. I think we were kind of happy with that one.
Yeah, yeah.
What was more interesting, and I was more pleased about, is that we saw the the needle flip over from Barbie to Poor Things in a number of
Absolutely.
categories,
Yeah,
and we
yeah,
saw that coming, and so I rooted for Poor Things over Barbie in costume design and production design, and both came true.
It was in makeup and hairstyling that I was duped a little bit because I thought the Academy was going to give some kind of token to what Bradley Cooper had accomplished in Maestro,
Mm.
and I knew we both agreed it was going to get shut out of the higher categories. I thought this is where they would deliver for Bradley, and I was totally wrong on that. They went with Poor Things, as you said. It was definitely a lot of love for Poor Things today.
Yeah, and increasingly as the love was happening. I mean, I was the same with makeup. I thought Maestro was going to win as well. I thought that's
Mhm.
where they were going to give Maestro something. They ended up giving it nothing. Three of the best picture candidates or nominees ended up being shut out completely, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But as those Poor Thing technical awards were coming in, it was dawning on me. It was like, oh, they're going to give it to Emma Stone
Yeah, yeah,
because it was such a tight race between Lily Gladstone and Emma Stone all the way. And the SAG award, I had said ahead of time, whoever wins the SAG is going to win it. And
yeah,
Lily Gladstone had won. But what I refused to listen to in my head is that she wasn't even nominated for the BAFTA.
yeah.
And as we saw tonight, and this is a big thing, there's a huge British contingent
Oh,
in,
yes, yeah,
how many of the women winners were British tonight? So many.
yes,
you
or
know, Oppen-
Irish.
yeah, or Irish, of course, but yeah, but like Oppenheimer and Poor Things are both, and Zone of Interest.
Yeah.
The three multiple winners tonight are all ostensibly British productions, basically.
American hosts introducing British winners.
That's the way we like it. That's the
That's
way we
it.
like it. So as a result of that, Lily Gladstone missed out
Yeah,
on Best Actress, which means that Killers of the Flower Moon was shut out completely.
yeah,
Now,
yeah.
interesting piece of trivia here. This means it's the Killers of the Flower Moon is now the third Scorsese movie to accrue 10 or more nominations at the Oscars and then go home empty-handed.
Mhm.
Gangs of New York, The Irishman, and now Killers of the Flower Moon as well. When it
Yeah,
when it rains, it pours, and when it doesn't, it really doesn't. Basically.
yeah, but to me, it also shows something where as good of filmmaker Scorsese is. I think you and I both said, I think you like Killers of the Flower Moon more than I did.
Mm.
But I came out of it thinking, oh, yeah, it's a good movie. But it wasn't something I was going to start heaping a lot of awards on. And I think a lot of other people felt the same way. You want to give Martin Scorsese his due. He always brings his A game, great quality film that's engaging. And yet, with the films that you mentioned, I think, yeah, wouldn't necessarily going to be something I'd be throwing a lot of awards at.
I mean, for me, what it really says about this year is there were so many good movies,
Well,
in the mix. I mean, you could see in any given year, you could see a movie like Oppenheimer, Poor Things, Killers of the Flower Moon, maybe even Maestro, something like that, sort of
yeah.
running away,
Hmm.
with a number of awards and picking up sort of 4 or 5 big awards, if it wasn't for the competition.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
it's an abundance of riches this year. It's not always the case, but it was that was the problem, I think, this
Well,
time.
like I like to say, I think we said in our predictions, I remember saying this was the strongest Best Picture category I'd seen in a number of years. There was no triangles of sadness in
Mm,
this top 10. There was no immediate weak links. I could look at this list and know, yeah, this film's probably not going to win, but it deserves to win. Every film I felt in the Best Picture category deserved to win. Whereas, like I said, past years, Triangle sadness for me is always like that's you just squeaked in because they expanded the category to 10 and there just wasn't enough great films that year. This year, we look at those 10 films and think, man, that is a slew of great filmmaking.
right. I mean, I like the Triangle of Sadness. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
And Ruben Ostlund is a great filmmaker, and I think it was because it won the Palme d'Or and then had a really good campaign behind it. And I think
Hmm.
that's how it got in with the big thing. And because his previous movies like The Square and Force Majeure
Hmm.
were really good. So I don't want to hate on Triangle of Sadness a little bit. I mean,
The funny thing is, I
it's
did kind of like it. I just didn't think it deserved to be in the best picture category, but go
yeah,
ahead.
the structure wasn't great on it.
Yeah.
But we digress. I mean, and when you're talking about like 10 Best Picture nominees and arguably the weakest movie in the category is Barbie, then you're kind of like, oh well, it's a pretty good year then, all told,
Yeah.
And let's talk about I'm Just Ken. What that
Oh,
performance
yes. Yeah. That was
was so good.
if it doesn't put a smile on your face, you're not human. That was
Right.
just what it brings a lot of joy, and it returned joy to the Oscars. I think a lot of times the Oscars are seen as a little somber, a platform for a lot of narcissism.
Hmm.
This returned joy of filmmaking and life and happiness, and we're sitting in the living room here just going, "Ah, oh, that was wonderful."
Yeah. I mean, for me, actually, I mean, as poorly as Barbie ended up doing, and it did just as well as actually I predicted it would. It was going to win for best song and for the wrong song, and that was it. All of my favorite moments of the show were all Barbie related. I mean, the I'm Just Ken performance was one for the ages. It's absolutely brilliant. I
Yeah,
love that they got in all the other Kens. I was talking about this, I think,
yeah,
with Phil
yeah,
on the radio the other day, and I was like, oh, it'd be great if they brought in like Simo Liu and Kuti Katwa, and then they did, and
yeah,
they were all there on the stage. And I thought that was great. And they brought Slash in to do his guitar solo,
yeah.
and Mark Ronson was there, of course, and all the rest of it. And he engaged with the audience and obviously with Margot Robbie and people like that. And I thought that worked all really well. And the other two highlights of the show for me were John Cena
Oh God,
presenting,
yes,
who obviously is in
yes.
Barbie as well, presenting best costumes naked. In a tip of the hat to the streaker from David Niven back in the
David
day. Yeah.
Nevins, yes.
I thought they played that really, really well. And
Yeah.
then the patter between Gosling and Emily Blunt, who are
Yes.
obviously the stars of The Fall Guy, which is a big summer movie coming out like in a couple of months' time. Basically talking up the whole Barbenheimer rivalry and their banter between each other, I thought was great and worked really well and introduced a really nice show reel about stunts. I was hoping. I had my fingers crossed. I was like, are you just about to announce that the Academy is going to start doing like a best stunts category in
Yeah.
future years?
Yeah.
And then they didn't. And I was like,
Yeah.
come on. Because they did announce that they're going to do best casting
Hmm.
I'm not sure. Kimmel said as of next year. I'm not sure if it is as of next year or if it's as
Right.
in 2 years' time.
Two more. Yeah.
But there so needs to be a stunt category. And that reel just yet again showed why. And it
Yes.
was
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
get on with it, Academy. Speaking of the in memoriam, which I think was handled very, very tastefully, Andrea
Yes.
Bocelli there as well,
Yeah.
singing.
Great song.
Um,
Great song.
I was very pleased to see that they included Lee Seung Kyun, who was one of the stars of Parasite,
Oh yeah.
who committed suicide
Hmm.
a few months ago after
Yeah.
being dragged through the tabloids for some other crap, um,
Yeah.
which was incredibly tragic. So I was just really pleased just to see that not only was he mentioned, but he got a full kind of like on his own
Yeah.
uh image, and that was great. I thought the in memoriam one. I mean, no doubt someone's going to come up with a name of someone who wasn't
That was
mentioned,
missed. Yeah.
and it's going
Yeah.
to be an outrage. And it's like it must be
Yeah.
really difficult putting that list together. But I thought by and large it was handled really well.
Yeah. And I we'd be remiss if we don't talk about Jimmy Kimmel and his hosting chops. I thought he did a fantastic job, but the thing I kind of didn't like was right at the beginning
Mm,
when it seemed the very first thing he went into was Barbie, and I saw he was highlighting the biggest movies of the year. But when he kind of alluded that Greta Gerwig, acknowledging her, but then saying that she perhaps should have been on the best directors list, like
mm,
some say, I forget the exact verbiage, but I think we brought this up in past recaps of previous Oscars that whenever they try to address a snub, the Academy, it just always seems forced and like better just let the dice roll. This is the way it came out. As soon as you acknowledge it, I think you're actually demeaning the talent there. I think Greta
hmm
Gerwig was, please don't, please don't bring it up. And I thought, why did they do this?
Well, you're essentially saying it to their faces that at least one of the nominees doesn't deserve to be there.
Yes,
That's
yes,
what you're saying. By saying, "Oh, Greta, you've been snubbed," you're
yeah,
saying that Yorgos Lanthimos or Justine Trier, you do not deserve to be there.
yeah.
And that's kind of an insulting thing to hear if you've been invited to arguably the most prestigious party of the year, and you're like, "Oh, yeah, sorry."
Yeah, yeah,
She just got in the car and we don't have space for you now, kind of thing. And it's
right.
like bad form. I mean, I guess I get why they kind of feel they need to address it because it's been a talking point, but you got to think about how you address it
Yeah,
because and the idea of the notion of a snub is bewildering anyway because it's not like people sit around a table in a room and go, okay, who are we nominating? Who are we not going to be nominating?
exactly. It's
So,
it's a human, and it's not like there wasn't a lot of love for Barbie throughout the evening. I mean, basically, it
hmm.
sorted itself out naturally, and so to ham-fist it in at the beginning just doesn't do justice to is arguably a great movie. I mean, Barbie is a wonderful film, and just let it speak for itself.
Yeah, I think in the end it all played out nicely because what they did is, yeah, a lot of the bits were related to Barbie in one way
Hmm.
or another, and so by the end you get the feeling that Barbie, yes, was a really big part of this year. It was a real big feel good movie that everybody liked, everybody had a lot of fun with, everybody engaged with, but it's not the winner.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
never should have been. The big winners, I think were, and I, just to be a little bit smug, the two big winners on the night were my two favorite films of the year. So
Yeah,
Oppenheimer and Poor
yeah,
Things. So,
yeah.
and at the end of the day, I don't really care that I didn't get exactly everything right. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's all good.
On my picks, two things I just want to highlight. I think we
Yes.
both love Zone of Interest and are very delighted that it won Best International Feature.
Mm,
But I think I picked Oppenheimer for Best Sound, but I
yeah.
put an S saying in our predictions, I think Zone of Interest should win. It ended up winning, and I wish I had the cojones to have
Yeah.
gone with my gut instinct because I said at the beginning, as good as sound is a critical function within Oppenheimer, it is just taken to a whole new level in Zone of Interest. And I think Academy voters saw the same thing. And I just wish I had gone with my gut because I'd have 18 out of 23 instead of 17.
Yeah, no, it is great. I mean, I went with Oppenheimer as well. We had a long conversation, I think, probably during our Zone of Interest review
Hmm.
episode about how important the sound is, how it's essentially another character in the movie. It's the way that you get to experience the Holocaust in the movie is
Yeah.
through the sound design. Um, and yeah, I didn't have the balls to go with it either. I just felt that the Oppenheimer
Train.
the wave, the current, the
Yeah.
momentum of Oppenheimer was just gonna. suck in that particular craft category. So I was wrong, but I'm more than happy to be wrong. In
Hmm.
that case, I'm just like, it's great when the okay, it's great when the right movie wins rather than the most popular movie wins.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, and so I don't like. So I mean, I think my ballot at the end was actually not great. I think
Yeah.
I ended up with about 16
Okay.
out of 23.
And I got the 17th because I went with Emma Stone.
Yes. See, yeah, yeah, I didn't listen, or I didn't quite feel the poor thing's momentum until too late. And I stubbornly stuck by my adapted screenplay. I lost two, I got two of the short categories wrong, but then I have to put my hand up and say basically, I hardly saw any of them. In
Yeah.
fact, in the
Yeah.
two categories I got wrong, the only one of those 10 shorts that I watched was the ABCs of book banning. So
Okay.
I went with that. I just thought, yeah, that's a really good talking point. I'd heard people like The Last Repair Shop, and it sounds great and it looked great, and I didn't even know what it was about. And now that I do, I'm going to go and watch it.
I
Um,
thought the same thing. I thought, wow, that looks really interesting. I got to check that out.
Yeah. I mean, if I want to defend my position, I would say that this is part of a bigger conversation about the lack of availability of the shorts,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
I think they're getting better. And you do see a few of them pop up on platforms, where the Netflix ones are obviously on Netflix,
Hmm.
the Disney Plus ones are on Disney Plus, and then on YouTube a number of them are available. But I don't think they're all readily available, certainly for international audiences to
Okay.
watch ahead of time conveniently and easily, and that would obviously be much better.
Mhm.
And maybe I would have had a more informed opinion going in. So that's my half-assed defense, anyway.
Mhm. And it was nice to see Godzilla minus one. We did mention the two Japanese films, but I don't think we actually zeroed in on the fact that Godzilla minus one won for special effects. And
Yes,
I think both you and I picked that because people, by and large, loved it. It's the only category that the film was not nominated for. And we both felt Academy viewers are going to want to give this film its deserved love. And it makes me think too how in the last few years, in response to Oscars all white, how they diversified a lot of the voting
mm,
over the world. And so there's a lot more diversification, different cultures represented. And I'm seeing it in the winning of the categories. You're seeing a more, in my opinion, a sophisticated understanding of these different films. Whereas when it was much more domestic, you could almost see them going through and just ticking off certain ones without a lot of thought. And the very fact that Zone of Interest took Oppenheimer in sound, I think, as a result of a better appreciation by the Academy voters for the voting process.
absolutely. You're really starting to see the impact of this broadened, diversified voting pool. Essentially, I mean, those three foreign language films got nominated for Best Picture: Zone of Interest, Anatomy of a Fall, which is half in English, and Past
Yeah.
Lives, which is half in
Yeah.
English as well. But let's be nice. Three. There's also three
The, the
movies.
the Brits were winning everything tonight. Come on, James.
We
Just
were
glory as the British representative of this podcast. You should
right.
just take the
But it's
glory and
I just think it's great to see that in all of those areas where previously there was a lack of diversification.
yeah,
Now
yeah,
it just feels present and present to a natural level, not a forced level. So there are three at least semi. You could even count Killers of the Flower Moon as a semi foreign language film if we're being super generous. So lots of foreign language representation in Best Picture. Three Best Picture nominees directed by women. Anatomy of a Fall, Past Lives, and Barbie. You got a female director nominated. You got a foreign language film. Two foreign language films nominated for Best Director
yeah,
in Zone of
yeah.
Interest and Anatomy of a Fall. You have actors of color in all categories. You've got Cord Jefferson, a man of
Hmm.
color, winning Best Adapted Screenplay. That doesn't have Divine Joy Randolph winning.
Yeah, yeah,
So everywhere you look, there's just there is diversity, and it seems to be happening organically, naturally. And then, so yeah, you get a Japanese film winning best animated feature, you get a Japanese film winning best visual effects, and it's like great.
yeah,
This
yeah,
is how it should be.
yeah, yeah. You don't feel as part of some strategic diversification program. It's just good films being recognized by a broader audience.
Right. And when there is a vote that does feel inherently political, like Best Documentary Feature, 20 Days of
Hmm.
Mariupol, you're like, absolutely, you know.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
because there is a legitimate statement to be made there,
Yeah.
and I think everybody is in agreement. And it's not an outrageous or niche one or anything like that. It's just like,
No, no, no.
yep,
Yeah. Yeah. It's one we can all pretty much get on board with.
absolutely.
Well, that's James and I's take on the 96th Academy Awards, but what is yours? We'd love to hear your comments in the comment box below. What about the controversy? It was very little of it, other than maybe a little Robert Downey Jr. Sparring with Jimmy Kimmel at the beginning, but that was innocent by comparison to the famous slap.
Oh yeah, sure. I'm sure it's all, a bit water under the bridge already.
Yeah.
Likewise, any perceived snubs from your perspective?
Mhm.
Anything overperform, underperform? What were your favorite parts, or how did you feel about the entire show as a whole going forward?
Till next episode. Take
Bye
care.
bye.
Bye bye.
You ought to be in pictures. Oh, what a hit you would be.